We are on Skype, and we are live. All right, here we go. Sorry, I had a couple of weird buttons pop up. And so, hi, so this is Joe Milton, and this is the International Society of Professional Wedding Photographers, the ISPWP, continuing series of wedding photographer interviews. And today, we have the pleasure of Mike Freas. Is that right? Not Michael? You prefer Mike?
Michael.
Michael.
I'm going to switch to Michael on this one. We're going to try to beat, since it's professional.
Okay, gotcha. So Michael Freas, and Michael is from Key West, and we are happy to have him here today. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Sure.
This is super cool.
We're looking forward to it because I've never been to Key West and I want to go, so I want to hear all about it. So let's start with you, like why you're in Key West, how you ended up there, and how you ended up as a wedding photographer.
So, all right, so it kind of goes back to birth. I was born up in the mountains of North Carolina on the Blue Ridge Parkway. My grandfather grew up kind of in the same area, and my grandfather used to always have a camera around with him. And I just realized this too just recently because I unfortunately had to go, and my grandmother's funeral was about 3 weekends ago, and went through all the boxes, and I went, oh my God, it's my grandfather. That's why I'm a photographer.
Wow.
It was every single photo that I went through, it was he had that camera in his hand, or it was him taking it. There was never a photo that I could find. If he was not taking the photo, his hand either had a camera in it or the tiller to a boat. No. One of the two things. So I
what kind of photographer was he?
Just amateur. My grandfather originally, he was a fuel tanker delivery for, used to be called Esso, which was now Exxon. Mm-hmm. I think he drove over like 15 million miles without a wreck, delivering fuel from Belton Honea Pass, South Carolina, all throughout all of southeastern United States, pretty much from his terminal. So he was really, but we always used to go to the beach. So I ended up at the beach, and that's probably why I live in Key West now, because I have this mentality where I have to be around salt water. I ended up in Florida after school. I had some family issues with my mother passed away, so I went on my my soul searching kind of, I would say pilgrimage, because I learned a lot from it. And ended up down in Florida. I started cooking because that was kind of what I needed to do to kind of stay afloat for a while I was trying to figure it all out because I'd flunked out of school. Ended up in kitchens in Florida and had a friend from high school. She lives in Key West. I moved down to Key West as a chef. I'd been doing it for, 11 years at that point.
So really, what kind of chef or what kind of restaurants?
I usually stayed around in like seafood. That was my thing. It was just, I liked cooking proteins that were fish because I loved to fish.
I'm guessing there's plenty of seafood in Key West.
Yes, and we'll probably get to another point of why I have something right now because of fish. And I was in this restaurant, and I started, this is about it was 2011. It was when cell phones were starting to get to that point where you could actually take a nice little image and look at something. And my thing was I'd never in my entire life watched sunsets. And I started sneaking out right before service because in the wintertime, dinner service started at 5:30. Sunset was usually 4:45 to 5:15. So I could sneak out, catch sunset, take a picture of it. Well, social media started getting bigger and bigger, and I started kind of paying attention to it more because of where I lived. Mm-hmm. Started like sharing with my family pictures of sunsets. Boom, boom, boom. So I got kind of interested in photography, and it wasn't something that I realized that I probably always had kind of around me. And this guy comes in, and it was my turn to make food for a magazine. And this guy comes in and takes these. I'd worked probably a couple hours on the dish that I had prepared, and he walked in, deconstructed my entire plate, and took the photo his way, the way that he wanted the representation. For once in my life, I bit my tongue because I just walked in and I yelled at my chef and asked them how much they paid this guy. I could take a better picture with my cell phone, and I'm done. And I quit the restaurant industry at that point. Literally, probably the craziest idea I've ever had in my entire life. It could have backfired badly. Yeah. Luckily, it didn't, and I think it's through perseverance. But
well, do you think there were other things going on that were maybe leaning you towards quitting anyway, or were you headed in that direction? Or
I was starting to get in the direction. I was burnt out. 14 years of being a chef, it just when you don't see yourself advancing, and it's one of those industries that either you start your own restaurant or you work your way up the corporate ladder, and I'm not that kind of person. So it was a blessing. Ended up buying it. I'd actually gotten hurt prior. Had a little bit of a workers' compensation check for $1,200. Bought a laptop that could run Lightroom. Bought a Nikon D3200 and a U16 to 35 millimeter lens.
Off you go.
And a tripod. And decided that I was going to be an architectural photographer.
Oh, okay.
So I had friends that worked in vacation property real estate around here. Kind of bullshitted my way in, said I know what I'm doing. She goes, yeah, go shoot 2 properties and we'll see how they look and then we'll go from there. And I came back. I went to the house. I literally pulled up YouTube and searched for 2.5 hours trying to find the video that was going to help me do it. Figured it out. And then it was done. It was like the bug. It just hit. I started learning bracketing as exposure. Then I started understanding why I do how light comes through a window and affects certain things. And it was like it just started clicking. And I kind of started reaching out to wedding photographers because I was like, I know I can do portraits. I am kind of a people person. Your friend Kim that we were talking about earlier, she'll tell you I'll talk your head off for hours, and I've never met you before. And that's something that I use it to my advantage at weddings because I have nervous anxiety, so if I'm quiet, I get nervous. If I talk, I'm like, it's like a defense mechanism.
Sure.
So I started reaching out to these wedding photographers.
Well, let me back up a second. So like how long were you doing the architecture photography for? How long was that gig?
6 months.
Okay.
Probably 6 months. I mean, I still do it now. I have clients that call me. I do things for them. I can turn things around super fast for them.
But like anything else, when you have to do it at a professional level like that, I mean, you're forced to develop the discipline and the knowledge about lighting and framing and composition. I mean, there's technical aspects to it.
There is. Parallax, learning about how leading lines can change things. And I think that really, I think that's a big thing that I attribute to my depth of field. Because when you're shooting at f8 and you're trying to lead someone into a certain focal point, it has to be from a certain angle that has certain leading lines that pulls it right to the subject. The part that's the fun and the hard part is figuring out how to do it with people that are moving.
Right. Houses don't move.
Yeah. And that's what people say. They said, I'm glad you said that. I was like, do you like shooting houses? And I was like, it's a nice break after a lot of weddings because they don't move and they don't talk back. Right. It's amazing.
Right.
It's the truth. Like I'm going to shoot a couple next week and I'm like all super excited because I'm ramping down wedding season while the rest of the country is kind of starting to up.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, if you blow a shot or you blow an exposure, you can just do it again.
Exactly. And that's happened a couple of times.
Right. Doesn't always happen with a wedding.
No, and it doesn't. But then, that I did that for a while. I would say 6 months until I got kind of the bug of like, I want to start shooting people. I want to learn about this. There's a ton of weddings in Key West. It's dubbed as one of the top markets. If it is, I don't know. But there are a lot of weddings that go on, and there's a lot of photographers. And I started reaching out to photographers. Got one that she brought me in. I kind of started working for her. I learned some things from her. I didn't learn the things that I know now. I think I learned because I saw that not happening at those weddings. And when I started working with her, the wedding photography bug hit me. But it didn't. It hit me on the more. I was I was enjoying being a second shooter, so I was getting to shoot more of the candidates. I was not having to run the show, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it got me more into that photojournalism mindset on the wedding side, the mm-hmm. reportage, and it's so much fun because I seriously am learning something new every single day, and I'm not putting people in poses. I just went through images from a wedding I shot last night, and I'm like, man, I finally started to put myself in the position to where these angles and the layers that we're talking about are starting to work. Mm-hmm. And if Tyler working and seeing this, Tyler, see I'm paying attention. Tyler's mentoring me right now. He's an amazing, amazing human. I like this guy. I'm learning a lot from him.
Tyler's the man. Okay.
So I guess from there, she and I decided to part ways, mm-hmm. and then it was like, all right. She kind of said, "You butterflies got his wings, time to fly away, and mm-hmm. sink or swim time." So I've always had a kind of a business sense. My father was a very good salesman. My uncle was a very good businessman in marketing. Mm-hmm. So kind of just from talking to them, figured some things out. Started it all off. I had literally no idea what I was doing. None. Read a lot of articles on f-stoppers, a lot of articles on petapixel. Started watching certain certain guys on YouTube on Lightroom, how to use it. And it's literally, I'm 100% self-taught.
Yeah.
I got to a certain stage now over the past, I would say 3 years that I've been shooting solo for 6. Mm-hmm. I would say fully professional the past 3 because that's where I've gotten really serious about it.
Yeah. But you didn't come in completely blind. I mean, doing that second shooting gig for another photographer, I think is really important. And it's something I always encourage people to do who say, how do I get started? I say, well, start by second shooting because, like you said, you don't have the pressure of the business side. You don't have the pressure of the client interaction, right? On that, and you can watch the professional work. You're in that environment. You're getting the experience. Your feet are on the ground. You're shooting, you're making tons and tons of mistakes and learning from them. That's the time. That's the time to make the mistakes, right? When you're second shooting.
Yeah, because then it's like it's not as crucial. But now that it's crazy. Now that I do it, I guess I'll probably I had sent you an email about this, and it's yesterday. I enjoy challenges. I didn't realize how much I enjoy it, but I enjoy it a lot. Yesterday I had seriously the most difficult wedding I've ever shot in my entire life. It wasn't the couple. It wasn't any of the guests. It wasn't anything but me. It involved me, and
mm-hmm.
I have 11 stitches in my right hand.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Did that happen before the wedding or during the wedding?
Before the wedding.
Okay.
I have 6 stitches in my left middle finger, 5 stitches in my right index finger because I decided to see how sharp a fillet knife was after a fishing trip last Sunday. Yikes. Did not feel great.
I was going to ask you, were you filleting a fish or something?
Yeah, it's called deep dropping. You're out in 480 foot of water, and you drop way, way down. They're bottom dwellers. They burrow in the mud, so they're very, very slimy. Mm. It's one of these ones where you have to kind of wash it off after each cut, but it is the most. I think it's a delicacy because it's a long run to get to them. So delicious. It's called tile fish. Golden tile fish, blue line tile fish, gray tile fish.
Never heard of it.
Oh, they're delicious. Huh. They're more warm water fish in deeper water. Okay. So I wasn't paying attention. I won't go into detail, but I just wasn't paying attention, and you do not realize, and as I look down at them, you don't realize how important those 2 fingers are to a photographer. I mean, mm-hmm. massive. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be good. Like, kind of taking it on the cuff, like, let's go. Let's do this. And I would say I figured out how to MacGyver a lot last
mm-hmm.
night.
Mm-hmm.
But it became, instead of going with the normal shots that I was always taking, because I could get ahead of a couple or do, kind of maneuver in a certain way to where the anticipation was way different because I wasn't able to get shots that I immediately wanted and had to reposition and plan. And it was a lot of work. It was.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting aspect of being in business for yourself, especially as a photographer. If you get injured or you get sick, you either got to adjust or you got to have someone that can cover for you. But it's either they can't change the wedding date, right?
No, and and I'm glad you said that, because if anyone's watching this right now that can get, I have in my contract that it states that if I cannot be there, I will find a photographer of my same caliber who will replace me.
Yeah.
I have, and this is no lie, I have 4 people that are on speed dial right now that one's 3.5 hours away, that if I say, hey, I cannot be there, I'm in the ICU, I need you. They're there. And a couple's asked me about that a lot. They're like, well, what happens if you're not going to show up? And I tell them, I say, look, there's 2 ways I'm not showing up. I'm in the ICU and I'm on a breathing machine, or I'm dead.
Right.
If I've got a broken leg, as soon as I get done wrapping my leg, put a cast on, I'm coming. I'll probably be hopped up on Demerol and falling all over the place.
Because it's true. What we're selling ourselves. We're selling a very personal service.
Exactly.
So that's
it's
a key point.
Responsibility and accountability. Like, this is, as a wedding photographer, I've been seeing a lot of issues with some vendors across nationwide. Just, you read things on boards and whatnot, and being very accountable for what you can do. You need to always make sure. I don't care how good you think you are. You can look at me. I cut fish for 14 years of my life professionally every single day. I've been filleting fish since I was probably 8 years old, so 31 years since my grandfather taught me. And I slice fingers.
Still happens, yeah.
And it still happens. So it's, and I think that's a big component of who I am too. I've taken on this community sense of mentality with surrounding myself with all the photographers and not setting myself aside from them. Yeah. So where we're not in competition for each other. We're there to keep building each person up. And it's that's been an interesting new aspect of my business that I've taken on over the past year. And I have multiple people to thank for it. And it's so true, because
I think the newer photographers or maybe think that they need to be concerned about the competition a lot, and you don't want to become too close. But the more and more experience you have, the more you realize the networking is really important, not only just to learn from each other, but to back each other up and to promote the business overall from everybody's perspective. It's a team, but
it is.
Yeah. It's not always perfect. Not always get along with everybody, but it's important to have a network.
There's always the trouble starter.
So let's talk about. I want to hear more about the Florida Keys and Key West. So because I'm West Coast, I've never been to Florida. It always seems like this tropical paradise. So there's got to be some pros and cons to living and working there.
There's a lot of pros. There's a lot of cons. Some people say I'm negative sometimes, so let's start with the cons.
First, the bad news.
Yeah, it's, Key West is an amazing place. I think one of the cons of the Keys right now is that the price model has hit a little bit higher. I think rates are a little bit higher, but for me, in the way that I see weddings, it's kind of great for me because I like the people that'll come. They'll spend the money to come down here. They don't care about the details. They don't care about putting $5 million, $100 million into having the perfect arch with the perfect that there's a call for that in every single avenue. But my niche that I really enjoy lately has been ones that just want to be down here, be in the environment. They're not being about the details. And this is why I say the more photojournalism side for me is they care about the interactions in the event and the two people coming together, and it becomes more about people. So another con for some people. It's tough to get to. We do have an airport that American Airlines, United, Delta fly into. big as it's right over top of my house too. So you might hear a 737 come over in a minute. It's a beautiful drive from Miami to the Keys. It's 165 miles, I do believe. Might be a little bit more, maybe like 180. But it's 2-lane highway for 3.5 hours from Miami Airport. Once you get onto the 18-mile stretch, which brings you into the Florida Keys, it's gorgeous. The entire drive is amazing, but we have way too many cars that are driving down. So that's where it becomes getting big groups of people down here can be tough for some people. It is worth it. There are very, very reliable vendors down here. One of the biggest cons, and this is why I said first, and I think this is important, that any person that's watching this or any photographer or any planner somehow that might be involved with this, media has made it very tough on us since Hurricane Irma that happened in 2017. There is a lot of BS, we'll leave it at that, out there that is false. You
mean in terms of the condition of the area?
Yeah, condition. Key West, I will tell you, because if you go to my blog on my website, anyone that wants to find me, you'll be able to find me through this. Send me an email. I'll send you the blog that I wrote. That was a first-hand account that I actually did. I was a first responder after the hurricane. I was involved in 27 private aircraft that were flying in supplies into a private airstrip because that was the smallest planes they could get in at that given time. I saw what happened. Key West didn't get hit. They all said, "Oh, Key West, we thought you got devastated." This is what happens every time there's a hurricane. So that in the Florida Keys we have working against us. I will tell you, the Florida Keys are perfectly fine. There is a steady stream of cars that have been coming down US 1.
That's good.
January of 2017, and they are still coming down. So, that is something that we do deal with.
It's good to know, though. It's good to get that message out.
Because
people might say, "Oh, I don't want to do a wedding there. I heard it's destroyed still." Yeah,
it's not. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because that kind of just popped into my head. I needed to say.
Well, it is an interesting thing about the Florida Keys too, because unlike a photographer that works in a big city like Chicago or Los Angeles or New York, where most of your clients live there in that city, I'd imagine that the vast majority of your clients are flying in from all over the country and all over the world, even, right?
Yep. I have people, I feel like my biggest clientele comes in from the Northeast, the Boston, New York, New Jersey areas. I get a lot of Michigan. I get a lot of Chicago. I get a lot of Texas. I get a lot of California, which is really interesting. A lot of people from like San Diego area.
They got their own beach.
I know. That's what I'm like, hey, that's fine. They want to come over here. It's funny because that means if I become friends with my clients, so it gives me free places to stay because I'm a surfer, so I love to come over there. Surfing in San Diego and Santa Cruz. But, we get people from everywhere, so that makes it very important to you as a photographer that is trying to deal with someone who's not there and not able to be in front of you at all times, not have face-to-face contact. You do video meetings. I use Zoom meetings, Skype meetings all the time. My first initial contact, I want them to see face-to-face with me because I want them to understand who I am. Because that's going to give them a level of confidence of the type of vendor that they're dealing with, who they're coming down for. And I feel like that kind of sets the tone for the type of people that, that's how I make decisions. So hopefully it makes them more comfortable.
But they also, at the same time, I'd imagine, since they don't live there, they're not familiar with the area, with the venues, with what beaches are good to go to. So say a customer or a client comes to you and says, Michael, I really want to have this epic wedding in the Florida Keys. Do they come to you for wedding planning, or they typically hire a planner? And if they come to you, how do you advise them on how to have a good wedding in the Keys?
For me, when they come to me, I point them in the right direction of who I've seen done the best setups. As a person, I'm a conservationist. I'm really big into the environment, and that's why I live down here. It's a sportsman's paradise. I have a flats boat. I can run out 20 miles and go fishing, sit on a sandbar. When it's flat calm, go out and catch, mahi-mahi, catch sailfish, catch marlin. I always wear shorts and t-shirt to work every day. But
that's a perk.
So for me, I I like it when people when they come down here, it's more about they're coming because they want to feel the keys. They want to be here in the keys. So, it's a lot. I try to be personal through my social medias so that as they find me, they start to understand the kind of person that I am, that I'm an outdoorsman, I'm a waterman. And then so I think for me, with the people that I gravitate towards, gravitate towards me, they start asking me like, hey, we saw you did this engagement session out at Snipes Key. How do we do that? I'm like, well, we run a 6-pack boat, et cetera, et cetera. Or, hey, we saw this really awesome engagement session you did out at the Dry Tortugas National Park. And then I have to go in to explain. I'm like, yes, well, we take a plane. I kind of turn into their planner on the engagements. On the wedding side, things change very quickly at venues down here. And it's absolutely impossible for me.
What do you mean by that? How do they change?
Rules, regulations.
Oh, okay.
It's corporate.
Right.
We all know. We all deal with it. You just send them your certificate of insurance, and 2 days later they need you to add 2 more words and into the verb. So it's like stuff like that.
Need your lawyer to review it again.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, yeah. So when I have planners that I work with down here, that there's a couple different ones that have helped me and coached me through and getting me into the industry. So I have a set group of people that I do send people.
Okay.
If someone doesn't want a wedding planner, yes, I do start helping them plan their wedding. They're like, well, who should we get for this? I swear, my mentality with my couples is I try to be their best friend. I try to be the person that's going to it may not be the best mindset, but it's who I am as a person. I'm a very straightforward, to the point, no frills. Like, I don't beat around the bush. I don't sugarcoat things. I grew up with a father who's he's a veteran, Vietnam veteran. He's a hard ass, and so it was always
doesn't sugarcoat stuff, right?
No, it was direct. So when you see this, Dad, I do love you for that. Because Father's Day is coming up. But I kind of try to be their best friend because I want them to feel confident with me as their photographer, because they're letting barriers down. So if I give them direct, like, hey, how's this vendor? And I'm like, well, this is what I've seen. This is what they can do, but this is what you might run into. Because I try to really get to know my couples massively right off the get-go. Because if I can start seeing how their head's spinning, I can kind of start helping them, and it makes things easier. So then on the day of, they're just so relaxed, and
and I bet you they appreciate it tremendously if you can provide them, sort of like customized advice. If you sort of understand where they're coming from or what their style is, if you can say, well, this might be better than that, or this vendor might be better than that, that's huge. Like that's good for you because that builds the trust factor, right?
I don't want a couple to sit down and they tell me something kind of is something they don't like, and then they go with a vendor, and that vendor thinks it's going to be, thinks it would be great for them, but hasn't taken the time to get to know them, and then does it, and then it's not the greatest thing. That can offset the tone of a wedding. And for a photographer who's, especially me, that's a photojournalist, like that, I wouldn't say I'm a full photojournalist yet. I'm an aspiring photojournalist. There's so much I got to learn still. But it can just completely deflate a wedding. And I watched it happen once where the dance floor cleared 3 times in one night, and that 3rd time it was done. And when people start sitting around, that's when the moments don't really start happening because the whole energy's been sucked out of it. So for me, because people come to me here, although I do go to people as well, which that's a whole new avenue I'm working on right now. When they're coming down here, it's an experience that you're providing, regardless of what vendor you are, whether you're the photographer, you're the planner, you're the cake decorator. You are part of an event, you're providing an experience, and I tend to pull from my hospitality and restaurant roots, that kind of mentality. Sometimes, even as much as I hate it, the customer is always right. It's the little things that
they're paying the bill.
Yeah, but and the thing is that, and I kind of have a talk with my couples and I say, look, your wedding's not going to be perfect. It will be perfect if the two of you pay attention to each other, you're in the moment at all times, because then when the little things that happen, you won't even know about them because you've hired professionals and that's what we're there to do. And we take care of it so that you don't have to worry about it. And the people I work with, that's what we do. We're problem solvers.
Yeah.
You know, I am a photographer. I am documenting things, but I'm also, I probably get way more involved than I should. But
hey, it's probably better to err on that way than the other way.
It's a passion. You know, these people are trusting me to be a part of one of their most important events. Like, I think it's a pretty big honor.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, you mentioned about the photojournalism side. Let's talk about style. So, because again, that's a matter of matching your style of photography to what the client wants or maybe even expects, right?
Right.
So a client comes to you and asks you to describe, how do you describe your style? How will we work with you on the wedding day? You know, how much posing do you do? You know, what's your approach to talking to your client about that?
So so they always say, well, we love your candids. And I say, well, that's good. And they're like, how do you do that? Like, I just do it. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, well,
how do you pose me in a candid situation?
Like, I tell them, I say, these moments happen. You have to be in the moment. And it's like, this is something we all talk about all the time, is being in the present, being present in the moment. And I explained to them the importance of not worrying about what their guest is doing, not worrying about, you know, oh my God, the flowers are turned the wrong way. I have a long talk with them, and this is how I explain it to them. And I say, look, I sit down with couples, I have a talk. We have FaceTime with each other. We talk, we go through everything. I start to learn about certain things that you guys like about each other. So get them talking about that in the couples sessions. Mm-hmm. So then it's the two of them, because, sorry, I jump around a lot.
It's okay. Go for it.
I would say, if you're at, let me just run it this way. If you're at a wedding, if you've ever been, you know, you're noticing at weddings, there's always periods where the bride and the groom are just so overwhelmed, they're tired of having people all around them at all points. They need alone me time. So I tell the couples that when we're doing on their day, that's when we try to have a lot of that. Just small minutes, like 10 minutes. We pull them aside, hey, let's go shoot a couple photos. And I get them talking about each other all the time. And so it just keeps them present. Or we start making jokes about one of the guys that did something, one of the groomsmen that was doing something. And it gets them laughing, and then they start talking about it. And it's just, I kind of tell my couples that I coach you throughout the day. Like, I'm kind of like the tempo driver. I set a tempo, a pace. It gets us through it. It's a whirlwind. Mm-hmm. If you play basketball, there's run and gun offense. Well, I do run and gun wedding photography because it keeps people moving. There's no time to sit, relax, get on your phone. And that's, I kind of tell my couples, you're not going to have your cell phone on you at all during the day. Like, put it away.
Wow, and they do that?
A couple of them have. Yeah. One of them was no, but a couple. But it's, they start to get, it's really, when I'm talking to couples, it's really basically explaining to them that I'm going to coach you throughout this whole process. Yeah. I'm going to help you through this because it's the most fun that you never want to do again. Like, wedding planning it's nuts. Like, it's crazy that even as a photographer, we put ourselves through it. But it's fun. It's chaos. And yeah. I love chaos. So, I would say it's just more explaining to them that I'm a coach. That you need advice, I'm going to help you out. If you want these candids, then you have to listen to me. You have to trust me.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know because different photographers have different approaches. Some of them say they're photojournalistic reporters type, so they don't interact with the clients basically at all. They just like a silent fly on the wall type of an approach. And then there's others like you that sounds like, well, you're involved, you're coaching, you're sort of moving the action around, but you're not doing this extreme hands-on, hold your fingers this way, tilt your head this much kind of a thing.
No, it's like, and in the coaching is not even really on the wedding day. The coaching is like everything leading up to the day. Because I send them emails, and it's like, I try to be funny. You know, I'm kind of a smart aleck, so I try to be funny throughout all of them and make jokes about certain situations that are going to happen on the day of. And then when it happens, I look at them like, see, I told you so. And they start laughing about it. And there's one couple that will probably see this, is they're going to know I was talking completely about them. Oh my God, why did that happen? And I looked at it, I was like, see, I told you that was going to happen. And then they start laughing about it, and then it helps them forget all about it. Like, it's not a situation that's going to be big or small. They just laugh about it, and they go on about their way. And that's like, is what I would say is like the coaching mentality, because it kind of happens. But I try to be their friend. I tell them, if you don't want to open up to me and you don't want to be my friend, then we're not going to work together. Because when they know I'm their friend and that I got their best interest involved, they end up forgetting that I'm even there.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to have that nervous energy where they have to talk to me to know that I'm still there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like something that Tyler said to me too.
Sounds like something he might say.
I think it is. I don't know. You're wearing off on me, Tyler.
Yeah. Well, the trust that you have between client and photographer is huge. To be able to have not only I guess an enjoyable day, that's an enjoyable experience because you have that trust and you have that work ethic and you have that relationship, but the photos come out better too because there's a familiarity, there's a comfort level. And if you have that, then the pictures reflect that, I think.
Yeah, and they do, and that's exactly what I tell them. I say, look, if you're comfortable with me, you let yourself break your walls down, let me in. I was like, your images are going to be phenomenal. Yeah, and it's sad that I could probably send galleries and say, here's 5 galleries. Tell me which 2 out of the 5 allowed me in, and you could probably tell. But that's, that can also be attributed to my fault too at the same time, because I may not have been as responsive, because we do, as photographers, we get really busy. And I think that's that's like one of my biggest cons that I have, like pet peeves that I hate, like that annoys me, is that I get so busy sometimes that I cannot give that 110% to every single person.
Yeah. You
try your best, but sometimes you fall short because we are humans.
Yeah.
It just happens, and but that's when day of you make up for it and you rock it out. Yeah. And it always has.
I did have a note here. I did want to talk to you about music festivals.
Yes.
Music festivals in Rolling Stone.
Yes.
This is another passion, I can tell.
This is my passion that I'll never become like. You'll never get rich doing it, but it's so much fun. Where I grew up in North Carolina, I grew up in a small town called Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Wilkesboro, North Carolina is home to Doc Watson. Doc Watson and Merle Watson are the pretty much father of modern bluegrass music. They started a charity concert back in 1980. I'm not going to say exactly what year because I'll get yelled at by the marketing director. She sees this. It's about 31, 32 years ago is when they started it. I always went as a kid. Used to always work backstage, moving drums off and on. Got Dixie Chicks before they went really big and famous. When I was a little kid, I had a crush on every single one of them. But I started going back to it last year. It's if I tear up, it's got a soft place here.
That's okay. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
So it's all blue. It's a bluegrass festival.
No, it's actually now it's progressed to where it's
bluegrass country, everything.
Americana, country. I mean, headliners that closed out the concert, the festival this year were Avett Brothers. Wow. They're phenomenal. Yeah. Brandy Carlisle was one of the big headliners.
So what's the name of the festival now? This was supposed to be big now with these kinds of names. What is it?
It's called Merle Fest. MERLEFEST. MErleFest.org.
Little plug.
What's that?
Little plug for them there. That's good.
Yeah, and this is why it's close to me. you try to make your mark and give back. I can't believe this.
This man loves music.
It's the.
Is it the community? Is it the?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. My town, although there is nothing going on that would ever make me move back there. Sorry, bro. Get it together. This festival is just something. It's my town.
Mm-hmm.
It helps the town. It's part of the town. It's a heartbeat of the town.
Probably brings in a lot of business into the town.
Yeah, it's $10 million and 70,000 people over the course of 4 days in a tiny, like my graduating high school class was like 220 some people. Like it's a small town. So I went back last year and I decided this was what I was going to do to give back. It's a charity thing. We all volunteer for it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to give them some of the best damn marketing images I can, do.
So when you say that, are you like, I guess, the official concert photographer?
It's just a group of us.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole thing. And I'd never met these people in my entire life. And like Ryan and Misty, if you're watching for Pixels on Paper, I became friends. I love these guys. Like they're family now. I get to see them once a year. And,
well, how many days long is the festival? It's a couple of days.
4 days.
Oh man, that's a long time.
I camped out.
That's a lot of music.
Yeah, I walked 42 miles this past festival. I camp on the campus, so I'm right there. I get up in the morning. They're doing sound check early in the morning. It's just like I used to go as a kid and listen to it. Now I'm a part of it.
and a nice change and a nice break from weddings as well, right?
And it's the North Carolina mountains the last full week in April, and the weather is.
Oh, so it was just recently.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this year I busted my butt, edited super hard, and then got 2 images in Rolling Stone magazine. That's cool. It's awesome. It was just like yes. It was like
probably really, really long days too.
Yeah, I just love the festival.
Do you not sleep for 4 days basically? No sleep. We
have a media room. And one of the favorite things is we always go into the media room because we're all just like, oh, I'm so tired. And you just start telling jokes while you're editing in Lightroom to get your images up onto the live wire.
Yeah.
And we all become friends. And it's like we all time when we go to edit because we just sit there and we laugh. And everybody picks on me because I'm a really easy target. I enjoy getting picked on. So it works. But yeah, I can't believe I got that emotional on that. That's place. It's a special place in my heart.
That's really cool. What any other kind of photography you do? You do weddings, you do the concerts, do you like portraits or anything? Or
no, I don't.
No,
I don't like. After my grandmother's funeral, I went through shoeboxes and all the family albums and realized that I don't like posed photography at all. I just don't. It doesn't do anything for me because I don't feel like it has substance. Because all the photos that I went through was my grandfather taking photos of my parents doing things with me, or me doing things, or of actual scenes happening. Like he wasn't the photographer. I mean, he was a hobbyist, but he didn't take photos of people standing and smiling.
Right. Okay.
It was people smiling because they were doing something.
Yeah.
Or he was really big into steam locomotives. So when the steam trains are coming down, he actually was doing on film the blurred images, which are amazing. So
if clients come to you and they say we want a certain amount of posed photos, what do you tell them?
I do them.
Yeah,
I do them. I just don't. They're not my favorite part. My favorite part, I would say, of a wedding is the mother-son dance because I lost my mother at 19. so I tear up on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that has a special place to me for the groom. The bride for me is like, and it's honestly like that's become one of my favorite parts of the wedding, because watching a bride's reaction to her husband dancing with his mother, that's very interesting to me. Because if you layer it properly, you can get some really interesting images. When it comes to the pose stuff for me is I tell them we kind of stick that, because in Key West we're so known for our sunsets. So that's usually my portion of the thing. What I was actually saying on posed is more, I'm really hoping I'm working on some things with a couple of families that I know, and I kind of want to get into the whole day in the life of on the family photos. Mm-hmm. I realized how important those photos are when I was, like I said, and I was telling our friend Kim this morning when I was speaking to her, my grandmother's funeral was a blessing, because it's made me realize how to get more personal with my images. Mm-hmm. It's looking through those albums and going, what am I missing here? What did we not take a photo? What did we not capture? Mm-hmm. Like, there's certain family members I don't have any photos with.
There's so much that is not captured. It's a shame. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I went through that and I'm like, man, this is it. Like, I understand. It's like that aha moment. You have so many of these. And now I'm like, okay, everything has to have substance. It has to be meaningful. I'm not going to take unmeaningful, worthless photos, because I'm not going to use them. And when I call, why am I going to select them if they're meaningless? Mm-hmm. I'm not. You can still do post photography, but add substance to it. I've learned from a few really amazing photographers the mentality of compose your scene and wait. Put the couple in there. Mm-hmm. Because if you can, and it works out in a posed environment actually, because if you put the couple into a posed scene, not a posed photo, a scene, where there are other elements of things going on around them. In Key West, it's perfect because it's a tourist town. There's sailboats. There's a guy that has cats trained like circus animals that jump like circus lions. It's freaking bizarre. It's a very weird place. But if you put the couple into that scene and focus on not them, but the other elements, they start to get into the scene themselves. And then that just like looking at each other turns into laughter. It turns into playfulness. Mm-hmm. It turns into a deep kiss that you didn't think was going to happen. It ends up to him just turning her. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like it goes in. Things start happening because you wait.
Well, it becomes an authentic moment that maybe you arranged it, but the moment is authentic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think is like that's my photography. It's composing a scene, looking at the elements. I understand light, something super important. I love light. I see it, I get happy, and then I compose the scene, and then all of a sudden something happens. It's like boom, there you go. Yeah. There's the image.
Okay, I want to let's see if I can share a screen here.
Oh God.
I know. See if I can get this to work the way I want to. Let's see.
I started laughing when I was playing around this morning. Yes. Yes, that's my granddaddy.
So I don't know if it's sharing on Facebook. I might have to do this. Hold on.
It's sharing on Skype. This is funny.
I think I need to share it on Skype, and I need to share it on this little app I'm using here. Okay, so this looks like obviously not a wedding photo. This is family photos, right? So.
Yeah, these are 3 that I pulled out of the shoebox that are like I'm going to cherish for my entire life. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know who took this photo on the left with me in the yellow shirt, because we're still trying to figure that one out, because my grandmother was a very horrible photographer. But it was just, this was when you asked for photos, I was like, man, this is why I am who I am.
Well, you said he either had his hand on a motor or on a camera.
Yep.
So
Yep. And that was the thing. He was my grandfather was a mechanic in World War II. He was a mechanic on P-47D Thunderbolt attack fighter bombers.
Wow.
So he fixed everything. He was a meticulous man. You go down to his garage, and it's like a time capsule. He had check registers that he turned into service records of sharpening the blade on a lawnmower, changing the oil on a car, or changing carburetor out on an engine. Like that was the kind of guy who was very blue collar guy. You know, my grandmother, she was a secretary at a high school her entire career. That's what they did. They raised two good women that I think I'm turning out okay. The jury's still out on that one. But, you know, and then I felt like the picture in the middle, that's just me. I now understand why people laugh at me, because I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
That's great, though.
And then, you know, you got the one on the right of my grandfather, my grandmother, and me, and that's a photo I'll cherish. You know, it's two awesome people and really amazing knee socks.
Yeah.
Those things are amazing. But yeah, I mean, and the camera he has in his hands, it was a 20. It was a Nikon F, and it was like a 28 to like 1 something, if I remember right.
Okay, I'm gonna go through some of your wedding photos here now too.
Don't mind the names.
Can you see that? Can you see this?
As anyone knows, when you submit to any contest, you always rename your files, and it's funny because conch salad is something that we eat down here a lot in the Florida Keys. We don't get the conch doesn't come from here. It still comes from the Bahamas. It's queen conch. You make a ceviche out of it.
Okay.
So it's kind of funny. This is Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa. It's outside the Tampa Garden Club. And we were walking out, and I was trying to find a cool image to shoot, and it's always the composition. I've started to realize that about lines where they should and should not go. You know, not trying to cut people off on their arms, their elbows, their necks, their heads. And this just was like so nice. I was able to get low. The symmetry of the lines just going across each other with the clouds popping off, and just it was a posed moment, but if I'm doing pose, this is the stuff I do. This is my art.
It's a lovely composition.
And the wall.
Yeah, the clouds are really help a lot here too, because it breaks up all the static lines, right?
Right. Like it wouldn't look right if it was just, you know, if it was a solid bluebird day and it was just all. I probably wouldn't even have shot this if the clouds weren't there. I stare at clouds a lot. Clouds are big with me. I always feel like that's my mom. Mm-hmm. So
that's kind of cool.
I look at clouds a lot. So and you know, it helps me too, because you can use clouds. Like you look at his head, his hat has contrast because of the gray of the cloud. Mm-hmm. He's in the Coast Guard. You would have seen it on an all blue hat, but I mean all blue day, but I wouldn't have taken it if it had been blue probably.
Yeah. Yeah, the colors is really nice in that. Yeah. So this one is a nice. I'm assuming a sunset shot. You see this one?
No, that was actually middle of the day.
Really?
Yeah. Sun was still behind us on trajectory wise. It was on the west coast of Florida.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going on to the next photo. I don't know if you can see it or not.
No, I can't.
Okay, I gotta keep switching between different applications here. Hold on. Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah, this is sunset. This is at Fort Zachary Taylor in Key West, Florida. Otherwise known as quote unquote to any photographer. It's called the Hill. Mm-hmm. It's what we call it. If you were able to see to my left, there was like 2 other photographers over there in the woods, like popping out of the woods. There's flash going everywhere. It's funny. it's a very popular spot, but I try to shoot it differently than any other person does with a different perspective. Again, leading lines with me are really big, so where they're at to me is kind of, it's the angle. They're at a point of an angle. If you look at it, it's almost a triangle. It comes in from bottom right hand corner up to the groom, and then from midway over to the groom. And I can actually give credit to why the composition is the way it is to a brilliant photographer by the name of Ken Pock. Joe, you probably know Ken.
I know Ken very well.
Ken has been a mentor with me and a personal friend, and he did a really cool. I attended a conference that he was speaking at, and he did a really cool kind of breakdown of his compositions and was drawing like why it was where it was and how it brought you into it.
Yeah.
And by him doing that, it opened a new chamber of my brain, and it's now this is how I look at things. It's leading lines. How do I pull a subject? If it's a posed image, especially, how do I pull them into the person, into the subject, and give it depth? Layering. And I got so lucky on this day too. God, it was so ugly. It was raining, and literally the sun popped out right as we got to the park.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Sometimes the sun gods are smiling upon you. But yeah, but in terms of the composition, it's one thing that I guess either amateur photographers or non-photographers don't always think about is how mindful and how deliberate you have to be when you're thinking about your composition, right? It's not just a gut reaction. Well, sometimes it is a gut reaction, but sometimes for me at least, it takes a little bit of time to think it through, right? What am I trying to do with my composition,
And I feel like young photographers that have talent get kind of misled sometimes because there's so much stuff. Anyone that knows me, I'm sorry to anyone that enjoys it. I hate Pinterest. I cannot stand it. To me, it's great for inspiration, but I feel like it gives false expectations to couples because they start seeing styled shoots and they don't know the difference between a styled shoot and a real wedding. Right. And it gives them they get preconceived notions that you have to work around it. That's part of the job. But I feel like young photographers or anyone that's aspiring to become a professional and go full-time as a photographer, I think they start to use and see photos that every other photographer takes, and it's just up close personal of the couple. And they start to begin, and their brain starts to think it's just about the up close personal parts, when there's so many more elements all around the couple.
True. That
it can still be about the couple, but you're pulling elements in. Oh, I love this photo. It cost me so much money. So this photo,
I want to hear that story.
There's a funny story behind this. This is an amazing couple. There is a good backstory to this couple, actually, which I really have to tell this because I think it speaks of who I am. This couple, Tara and Ryan, they got hit pretty hard with Hurricane Irma. So I donated a wedding to them. I shot their wedding.
They live in Key West?
Yeah, they live up the Keys a little bit, up in Marathon, where it really got hit hard. Okay. That's where things were bad, but that's mainly the residential area. There aren't a lot of events in that area. It's more residential. So they came to me via an old couple, and I found out some information, and I shot their wedding on the cuff. It was on me. They deserved it. She's a good person. She is the director of the SPCA in Marathon. And I love dogs. So I had to do it for them. So this is their engagement photo. This is at a place called Scout Key, which is a Boy Scout camp up in the Middle Keys, up around Marathon, the Big Pine area. It's got this amazing landscape because these are all limestone rocks at low tide. So what you're seeing on the reflection is it's a tidal pool. So as we were walking out onto the rocks from back to, I would say, camera right up behind the tree, I was like, hopefully I don't slip and fall, man. This would suck.
Foreshadowing for the story here. And you fell.
I fell one time, but I ruined a flash or something like that. And then I said, right after I took this, I stood up, I slipped, I fell, left hand camera went into the little tidal pool. The tidal pool is only like 6 inches deep. But of course, the one spot on the camera that is not waterproof, that is, weather sealed, is the battery compartment. If water gets in that, you're screwed. So, shout out to Nikon Professional Services for taking care of me and getting me a loaner while you were repairing everything and taking that. If you're able to become a member of Nikon Professional Services, I highly recommend it because they do offer you loaners, because my camera had to wait on parts to come from Japan and I did not have to pay for a rental. So thank you very much, Nikon. That was amazing for you to do that. So we had to send a Nikon D850 and a 28mm 1.8 lens to Nikon to be fixed. Oops. But we got this awesome photo, and it did win some awards. So I'm pretty stoked about the awards that it won. Yeah. But the composition on this one for me, I love reflections, but it also became, again, pulling you into the subject. I had a graduated filter on the lens, so I contorted that to the left far, so that basically the spectrum started at upper left-hand corner and came around, and then I was able to get a natural vignette to the right because of there was a tree, and I actually had the camera down. This is at water's level where I'm shooting, so I'm shooting with a 28 water level towards them and up.
Are you lying down on the ground on rocks, or are you actually in the water?
I'm actually kind of laying on the rocks, and the beauty of the Nikon D850 is that it has a pop-out screen with a touchscreen AF system that works really well.
Nice. Using technology to its fullest.
Exactly. I like to shoot a lot of low shots. I like to shoot from the ground. It's just a different perspective. I don't know. Sometimes to me it makes people bigger than life, and I feel like, you know, when I have a bride write me on a thank you card and say it's the first time she's ever felt beautiful, it's like I want to make people feel larger than life. Yeah. So I shoot a lot of low shots.
Well, it's a great technique to get clean backgrounds too sometimes, as this photo shows.
And it works too. The thing you have to really worry about is when you're doing it is that you're making sure that you're not using a lens that gets too much distortion. This is a 28mm lens, prime. So to me, that's about the spectrum. I try not to ever shoot anything under 24 on people unless I'm going vertical and I'm doing something crazy.
Well, especially the more centered they are too, the less distortion you're going to get. So
exactly,
it's nice. Exactly. It's a nice reflection shot.
Yeah, I like it. I like how it pulls you in kind of from the darkness to the light too. I mean, it's always, my personal life falls into all these photos. I'm the only person that can dissect them the right way, but I pull a lot of stuff from my experiences. I've not had the best life. I've had I had some rough periods, and I kind of pull from those experiences when I talk to my couples and try to compare my experiences to theirs, in not talking to them, but in my mind. And so from there, it gives me more of a personal sense of who they are, and I know what things made me happy, so I try to do the same for them. It's all about couple client experience. Oh, I love this.
Where is it? There it is.
I was just at this venue last night, and we were just talking about this image last night. It was perfect. I think it was almost a year to the day exactly that we shot this too. Sometimes you just gotta say go big or go home. First dance, started pouring down rain.
Okay, that's rain. It's not a sprinkler or anything.
Oh no, that's rain. It started coming down. Tropical Storm Albert started coming down hard. They were doing their first dance. They stayed out there. The light on the back is.
They are soaked, by the way.
Oh, they're soaked. Yeah, I'm soaked. Yeah. That was a Godox 8200. Ruined that. The trigger's ruined. I'm shooting a Nikon D850 on, and I think this was an 85 prime. And that camera is still working to this day.
Nice.
But it was, everybody started running. You know, your first instinct when it starts to rain is run, get dry.
Uh-huh.
And any photographer that's watching this and knows your first responsibility is your subjects, couples. If it starts raining, that's the difference between me and a lot of people. I don't care. I'll stay out there. If I ruin equipment, that's why I have insurance. My grandfather used to always say, proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
I like your grandfather more and more you talk about him.
He's an awesome man. Like, I realized how close I was with him, and it sucks that he went at such an early age, because it would be pretty awesome if he could see me now.
So it looks like there's a flash going off in the background. Looks like you have, do you have flashes on remotes on poles, or what's on stand?
Flash on a remote, so it's on a remote camera right behind the subject, and it was on top of the I had another one camera left that was on a trigger, and then I think there was one on top of and then there was also on top of the camera. Yeah. The problem with this venue is that you see those string lights. That's the entire lights for the entire dance floor. Okay. So, yeah, it's a lot of it. It has to go black and white, and it's, you know, unless you're hand holding a flash and jumping into the middle of the reception into everybody dancing, for any shot when you're on the outside of this venue, it's going to be very dark, and you're not going to be able to see and focus very well. Yeah. So I was, believe it or not, I was popping flash and recomposing my AF as the flash went off. So I would test flash with my hand on top of the remote, hit, and as I'm hitting that, I'm simultaneously holding in my flash system, my AF button, back button focus on my camera, and then locking onto them. So then once it's locked, I'm able to hold lock, switch to manual, and then fire off, because I'm not moving and they're staying at pretty much the same depth of field plane. Again,
underscoring the importance of knowing your equipment and knowing how to use it, right?
This image is at 5.6, so I knew if they stayed within that, I'm focusing in the first third. We know the second and third thirds are going to be in focus.
Yeah. Well, here's the great thing too. I mean, not only the fact that you stayed out there in the rain, number one, but number two, exactly, to even capture that expression of the face lit like that. You know, even in good circumstances, that's not easy to do.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was so awesome. I was so soaked. I've never been so wet.
You must have been soaked. I hope you didn't have much more of a wedding, afterwards, right?
Yeah, well, the best part is afterwards, everybody was so drenched, she called and ordered pizza before the reception ended, and showed up with big boxes of pizza for everybody. Nice. It was awesome.
And should have ordered a box of towels.
Yeah, screw it. It's Key West. That's what we say. It's Key West. But, you know, it's like, that's the thing about what I love about couples and why I love wedding photography so much. And it fuels me every day. It's getting to know these people, being a part of their life, staying friends with them, and watching their families grow.
That's pretty cool.
Because they do crazy, fun stuff, or just, like, she told me after I showed her that photo. I went home, I edited that night and sent it to her. I was like, oh my God! I was like, this is awesome. And I sent it to her, and she was like, yeah, anything for good photos. We told you we wanted to have good images. And it's like, that's the mindset that you need to get your couples to. Yeah. This was great. Ashley and Dan, love these guys. Just fun. This is actually my idea. This idea happened because of a photo that I shot of a wedding planner who I'm friends with back in September. Okay. So it's confetti. Now, before we talk about this, and any of you keyboard warriors get going, that is biodegradable.
There you go.
That is water soluble. That I purchased myself because I am a member of Reef Relief and Surfrider, and I would not allow her to have balloons or regular confetti because turtles are majorly massive in our area.
I would expect that they would have rules and regulations and even laws for that kind of thing down there, no?
Oh, that's the biggest thing. There's don't get me started on politics, please.
Okay. But it's good to know that all that confetti is water soluble and biodegradable.
Yeah, you
not going to hurt anything.
On Amazon, it's water soluble.
Nice. That's fantastic.
And so as soon as it hits down, it dissolves. And it was, if I remember right, it was like all like plant-based too.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I noticed about this photo right away. I mean, you're on the beach. There's clearly direct sunshine in the background, but this is a nice, softly lit, shaded type of lighting over the subjects, right?
Yep.
That's what's so unusual about it. What's going on with the shade there?
Bunch of palm trees to the right.
Ah, there you go. Nice. That's what makes it so great. Because usually a photo like this on the beach would be like the direct sunlight, right?
Yep. So if you actually look behind them, you will see right on the edge of where the girls are, behind a little bit further behind the bridesmaids. Mm-hmm. The sun was falling. This isn't during April, so the trajectory of the sun, this is actually not facing, where this beach is facing southeast. So the trajectory of the sun was actually more, let's see, southeast. Trajectory was more like a northwest setting. Shameless call out. I'm a self-proclaimed weather nerd, so I really like weather. And there's a really cool app. Actually, you should get it if you're a photographer and you're ever wondering about where the position of a light is going to be. It's called Sunseeker. Sunseeker will give you an exact location of where the sun is going to be at any given time throughout the day for up to a year in advance.
Good tip.
You're able to plan. If you're trying to say, hey, I want to do your location scouting, it's a brilliant tool to have. You can pull it up super fast. It'll pinpoint your location, and then you can scroll through dates immediately. And as you scroll through, it adjusts where the sun is, and it gives a hour-by-hour comparison. So, that luckily they didn't do that. This sun was happening about an hour prior to sunset, so it's already started to start getting behind some of the palm trees in the area because they're super large. There's also a building that I use to my advantage that's back behind camera right. Mm-hmm. It's blocking the sun, that's the thing. I will say that this image, I'm going to kind of toot my own horn because when I saw the light the way it was, I knew to switch from matrix. I like to spot meter in broad daylight, and I knew to switch because I was running aperture priority on this. When I'm shooting a ceremony and it's fast moving, I'm shooting aperture priority and I'm adjusting with exposure compensation.
Right.
When I shot this, I actually switched prior to the kiss. I pre-planned it and switched from spot metering to matrix metering so that it evaluated the scene overall in the background for my quick test shots, and then I was dialed in. If I had been shooting spot metering, it would have been completely blown out in the background, and it would have been a falsification of high key, so to speak.
No, nice tones, nice exposure. Well done.
Thank you.
And the framing, and the expressions, and the timing, and the confetti. So it's like
having 14 frames a second doesn't first.
Yeah. We got time for one more photo, and we'll wrap it up.
That is one thing I do plug Nikon a lot. They get a lot of crap because it's like all about Sony and Canon, but Nikons have been so good to me, and I'll never change from them.
Good.
If you invest your money in good glass and good bodies, those systems will last. And this is the same wedding. This is like this is like my calling card right here.
Oh, this is the same wedding as the beach wedding we just saw? Yep,
same wedding, okay. Beach wedding. This is inside.
This is obviously an interior, right?
Yep, this is inside. Handheld flash on a monopod that I actually used my hip as kind of like a rod holder, so to speak, and was like had it out at an angle and turned in at her, and then I was holding a 16-35 handheld at whatever settings and shot through. And it's again composition, leading through people. I probably could have dodged it a little bit more on the right hand, kind of the bottom right hand side where you see your drink cup. But if you look at the image properly, you'll start to see it's the glasses lead to the hands, the hand leads to the face leads to the chaos. And this was kind of part my idea because she and I convinced her to get a CO2 gun, and we were just firing that thing off all night long. So much, and that's what happens. And that's the thing. Like, if you don't, I try to tell my couples, if you don't like worry too much about overly non-memorable details, like unfortunately, people don't remember the food. They remember the dancing, the food, and the moments. They don't remember the food. They don't remember the decor, that stuff. Like
right.
Wedding planners probably hate me when I say that, but it's honest. I'm a truthful person.
Yeah.
It's
got to look nice, but we've been to enough weddings. As long as it looks nice, it's fine, right?
Then they can splurge on CO2 guns, and they can have epic times and get epic photos, and that's what life is about.
So you're holding the light yourself on a pole.
Yep.
Do you ever have like an assistant or a second with your lights, or do you always shoot solo?
I have a second. My buddy Philip helps me quite a bit. When it gets to, if I'm under 150 people and it hits reception time, I'm usually running the reception myself, just because you start to get. I would rather shoot the way. Just let me shoot and nobody be in the way, because I hate to say this, but I've had really good photos ruined because as I start to look through it and get closer into it, there's a camera, there's a flash, there's the edge of a hand of a watch of the person who I know it is, and it's like that to me. I'm really focusing lately on very clean compositions, and I don't like using Photoshop, and I'm not going to doctor up a photo because of that. It's just, to me, that it's not a real image.
Okay.
I like to run second photographers up until pretty much once the speeches are done, through the important moments when the toast and all that stuff's done. I usually, if it's under 150 people, I let my second go home and I'll shoot the reception, because I love receptions. I go crazy. I have more energy than most people can imagine.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
I always enjoy wedding receptions. For the most part, they're a lot of fun.
When they're high energy, I'm out in the middle of the dance floor with them jumping around dancing.
Well, I think this photo kind of exemplifies that and shows that you're in there, you're in the mix, right? But you're also looking for the lighting, you're looking for the shot, you're looking for the layering, you're making it visually interesting, because there's a lot going on in this photo. But my eye goes right to the bride's face, which is fantastic.
And that was, they got into a circle with her, and she had been dancing. And that's the one thing, when you got a bride that's super fun, she gets in the middle of everybody and she starts dancing around, and they had circled her up, so it was able to kind of allow me to compose it, do a couple quick test fires to see where the flash was, and then I just hung out and waited till, I looked at the DJ and he was like, yeah, and he had just this was the end of a burst. I do spray and pray at receptions. Who doesn't? I'm sorry, I do it. When there's a CO2 gun going off, I'm firing as fast as that camera, and it's in overdrive, because you can't see. That's the thing. You cannot see, so you don't know what's going to happen, and a good image pop out of it. So I had tested it. I sat around and I just sat here and waited, and I looked at him, winked at him, he fired, and this was right after everybody was just going absolutely ballistic. It was
it's high energy.
I love those kind of receptions.
Yeah.
I love intimate receptions where there's a lot of heartfelt touches that go into it, where, even if it's just a guitarist up playing, there's people dancing around, but there's moments going on, there's heartfelt things, or it's either that for me or it's full blown.
As photographers, we're just looking for something fun and interesting and creative to do our art, and weddings are such a great opportunity for that. Sometimes you have to look a little bit harder, like I said, if it's a real quiet, laid back wedding. And
that's tough.
It's a little tougher. It's got to look for it, or you got to adjust your mindset to the kinds of photos you're going to get. Still love it.
I think if I could give an advice to any photographer,
let's close with your advice. That's fantastic.
If you're ever thinking about getting into wedding photography, first figure out what your purpose is, why you want to do it. For me, it's family. That's I've realized it now, the importance of it. So, and I can accustom a lot to my mentors for explaining to me why, making me realize that I'm a family historian. So that's my purpose. So if you're going to get into wedding photography or engagement photography, elopement, that whole gamut, make sure you have a purpose for why you're doing it. If it's just to be a job, then it's probably not for you, and you're going to be one of those people that all of us photographers will sit around and talk about, because I'm guilty of it, and any person that says they aren't is a liar. But you need to have purpose, because your purpose and why you do something and why you're a wedding photographer, why you're that style of photographer, your purpose is going to translate into your photos and your images. And that's going to be what you create. And that's what you're going to grab hold of, and you're going to start to base your business around. You're going to base your photography around. My photography now and has always been about the interaction between two families, because it's a family historical event. Yeah. Yes, I love the parties and all that, and it's great. But also know that as a wedding photographer, you will struggle, and you're not going to be rich. You do this because I do this now. I thought it was a glamorous job, and I realized that it doesn't make me as much money as I thought it was going to make me. But that doesn't matter one bit to me, because I seriously wake up every single morning and go, I got a wedding today. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, there's a certain satisfaction and self-fulfillment about it, especially if you have that, like you have with your grandparents, especially that you have that at the very least that appreciation for people and families and history. And if that's important to you, then yeah, it's a very, very fulfilling profession. And
I think, and if you go into wedding photography, do it for you. Don't worry about what other people's prices are. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Find yourself a community of photographers. Learn from them. Be hungry to learn. Come in. Work with us. Start, don't think you're going to get paid right out the gate. I got paid out the gate, but it was because I busted my butt and proved myself. The first few jobs I got, I didn't get paid. It's come in, work with us, learn, let us show you, be part of a community. Don't be competition with everybody else. Because when your community of photographers grows, your business grows, and then your life grows, and you start to learn more from other people. And then just make sure you travel. Learn from every single person, every place that you can go, because that will end up in your photography too.
Wise words, and a great way to close it. Thank you for that. Very heartfelt, meaningful, right, by Mike Freas, exactly. Well, thanks a lot, Michael. It's been really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, man. This is great. I appreciate what you guys do. I was telling Kim that today, it's summertime now, so this is my first year in ISPWP, and this is finally at that point where it's slowing down, and I can sit down and start calling and curating contest images.
There we go. There we go. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Anything else? Anything new next coming up for you that you want to talk about, or how people can contact you?
I got an awesome wedding in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I always wanted to shoot out there, and going out there in August, so that's going to be awesome. The end of the summer, beginning of the fall. It's such a beautiful time out there. Getting my first international wedding in October. I'm heading to Sorrento, Italy.
Fantastic.
That's going to be epic. Mount Vesuvius in the background of the wedding. That's I get chills thinking about it. And then I'm possibly going to Bali with a family who I met in the Philippines last year while I was there surfing, to potentially follow them around Bali and document them there, so I can kind of get an idea. This whole day in the life family.
Get the day in the life portrait sessions going.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's just. I think the biggest thing coming up is just I'm so excited to really dive into how important family is.
Yeah. Well, sounds great. Well, thanks a lot, Michael. Been a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to you soon. And next time I'm Key West. Next time in Key West, I know who to talk to.
Yeah. Come down, man. We'll welcome you with arms. Go slow. If you come down to Key West, just take it slow. Yeah. Don't be in a hurry to get anywhere. Get on the island.
You'll have to give me a surfing lesson.
We don't have surf here.
Oh, no? No surf?
Yeah, it's the only big problem about here. So that's why I go to the Philippines.
You can take me fishing then.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that all day long. Let's go.
All right, take care.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.